So today's big show is on the new American diplomacy. As the United States began to be a world power, they had to change the way they dealt with other countries, and that's what referred to here as diplomacy. By 1900, the United States was a major power in Asia with naval bases all across the Pacific. And that leads us to what is referred to as the open door policy. So to tell you the story about that, I need to begin in 1894 in a war between China and Japan. Japan easily won and took territory in Manchuria. This led to concerns about Japan's growing power by Russia, France, Germany, and in fact many countries were concerned about Japan's growing power, and so they forced Japan to back down and give up some of that land. Russia, France, Germany, and Britain all got what are referred to as spheres of influence in China, a section of the country where that country had special rights and privileges. And what I want to convey here is the fact that Russia, France, and Germany and England all kind of saved China from Japan, but then that came as a cost, and that cost was that those countries got to have special privileges and control some of the economies of different sections of China. U.S. President William McKinley supported a policy that allowed each foreign nation and China to trade freely in the other nation's sphere of influence, and that's what the open door policy really was. Think of it like rather in a sphere of influence, it's like a closed classroom, and McKinley wanted all the doors open. But that's a little self-serving, because the reason why he wanted all the doors open was because the United States got to the party late, and they didn't get a sphere of influence in China. They didn't get a classroom. So McKinley says, I got there late, let's open all the doors up. Well, at that time, something known as the Boxer Rebellion started. And this really centers around a society of righteous and harmonious fists. This is a group of people in China who were very much against foreign control and influence. They were known as the Boxers. And Germany, Austria-Hungary, Britain, France, Italy, Japan, Russia, and the United States all intervened at this, and there was this military intervention against this rebellion, in which there was foreign territory in China was destroyed. Some diplomats were harassed or even killed, and so these countries all banded together to put an end to the Boxer Rebellion. So we begin to see the United States playing as with one of the big boys. They were one of the established powers now. They're getting involved and exercising their control over other countries. And that leads us to the building of the Panama Canal. President Theodore Roosevelt believed that displaying U.S. power to the world would deter nations from fighting. If everyone saw how we would be like the international police force, and other countries would not be as likely to fight. He believed that having a canal through Central America would be vital to U.S. power in the world, so the Navy could get from one ocean to the other very quickly, very easily. At the time, though, Panama was a colony of Colombia, which is in South America, and Colombia did not want the United States to build a canal through Panama. So the United States supported a Panamanian revolution to break away from Colombia. We sent our warships to be off the coast of Colombia and to make sure that that revolution could take place. And the United States immediately recognized Panama's independence and was immediately granted permission to build a canal in Panama. And kind of associated with this is something known as the Roosevelt Corollary. That this is under President Theodore Roosevelt. The United States would intervene in Latin American affairs when necessary to maintain stability. It was designed to prevent European countries to have control in Latin America. After Roosevelt was president, then it was William Taft, and he brought in a foreign policy known as dollar diplomacy. This is a policy of joining the business interests of a country with its diplomatic interests. So, in other words, they would use the strength of the U.S. economy as well as military and other diplomatic efforts to get what we wanted. Well, after Taft being president, then comes Woodrow Wilson, and that brings in a period of time of conflict with Mexico. To put a little context with this, for more than 30 years, Diaz ruled Mexico as a dictator. And during his rule, Mexico became much more industrialized, but most citizens remained poor and landless. So in 1910, Francisco Madero, a reformer who seemed to support democracy and land reform, led a revolution. However, conservatives in Mexico were worried about Madero's land reform, where they're going to give land to poor people. So they plotted against him, and in 1913, General Huerta seized power and Madero was murdered. Now, Huerta's brutality angered many in the United States, especially President Wilson, who refused to recognize the new government in Mexico. Wilson believed that without U.S. support, Huerta would be overthrown. And then, in response to a German ship unloading weapons in Veracruz, Mexico, Wilson orders the Marines there to take the city. So Germany was supplying weapons to Mexico at this time. And I want to give a little context. This is like during World War I. And Germany was concerned about the United States coming in on the side of the Allies against Germany in World War I. And so they took the attitude if they could create problems in Mexico, it would keep the United States focused on the Western Hemisphere and out of Europe. So the Marines land in Veracruz and they take the city by force. Wilson expected the Mexican people to be thrilled to see the Americans, but they weren't. It led to lots of anti-American riots. So in this conflict that's coming about here, Wilson accepts international mediation, and a man named Carranza, whose forces had acquired weapons from the U.S., became Mexico's president. So kind of our guy that we at the United States had supported becomes president. But Mexican forces who were not in favor of Carranza, led by Pancho Villa, conducted raids into the United States, killing Americans. They realized a connection between Carranza and the United States, and they wanted to get rid of him. Well, with the killing of Americans, President Wilson sends almost 6,000 troops, led by General Pershing, into Mexico to capture Pancho Villa. However, Wilson's concerned about the war in Europe that was going on, and by this time we were just a few months from the United States being involved in the war, causes him to end the mission, the American troops in Mexico, unsuccessfully. Pancho Villa was not captured, and he would end his days as a revolutionary. He'd make peace. He would be granted land in a state by the government of Mexico, but would eventually be assassinated, I think, in 1924. So during this time, I've covered about 4 different presidents. We're talking about the time period from the mid to late 1890s until about 1917. We're looking at a 20-year period of time. This is the time period when the United States became a major world power, and it was the time right before we got into World War I, which was in 1917. And this was the diplomacy, some of the things we had done as a result of us gaining world power.